Alright, time to focus on another one of the free-to-play customs exclusives, and that is Aardvark. Now, Aardvark has been one of my favourite units since the beginning. It's not very good, or at least it wasn't very good. Way back at the start, it used to gain +2/+3 when an opponent summoned a unit. Of course, the reason it was +2/+3, I would imagine, is because there's no guarantee that the opposing team is going to have anything to summon, and so sometimes your Aardvark would do absolutely nothing. The only pet that you had access to back then that could summon for the opponent was the bear. And of course you still have access to bear in free-to-play customs, but it is kind of limited, because you end up replacing all your own perks with honey. So it was a pleasant surprise to see last year when they updated the free-to-play spread of units in customs that they added both the sarcastic fringe head, which you can see here, putting a unit onto the other side of the board, and also cuckoo. So now the Aardvark has 3 different free-to-play units that it can synergize with, and make sure that you actually summon something on the other side of the board instead of just crossing your fingers and hoping for a summon build. So you can see how it works here. I mean, you could see it in the previous battle, but we put 1 unit onto the other side, and then both the Aardvarks immediately gain stats. Really, when you think about it, this is pretty strong. The Aardvarks are gaining like shark level stats at tier 3. Of course, you can't trigger them as many times as the shark, but if you actually get a decent setup with this, you can trigger the Aardvarks quite a few times in one turn and end up getting a huge amount of free stat gain, assuming you don't get disrupted. And we're getting some pretty easy opponents here, probably because we had a terrible start. In fact, actually this particular battle we completely sweep them with the fringe head and we don't even get to see the Aardvark ability go off. Now there is cuckoo in the shop there. I have seen some kind of strange stuff with cuckoo where sometimes fringe head will go first when it has high attack, and other times the cuckoo will actually block the fringe head. So I was trying to avoid running both of them in the same team, and luckily this team actually had a summon as well, so huge amount of stat gain on the Aardvarks in that particular round. We also don't need to level up the fringe head at all, which is one of the benefits of it. We don't care about the strength of the unit that we're putting onto the other side of the board. All we want to do is make sure that the Aardvarks get their activations. And in this situation, they're going to be good enough to beat another one of these Bulldog Crab players. Taking the Crocodile also gives us a chance to potentially summon something in the back line of the opponent. If they have Fly, for instance, or maybe they'll just have something with Honey or Mushroom at the back line. But look at the size of these Aardvarks getting so many free stats for nothing. And we don't even have to put, or we didn't even have any protective equipment on them this entire time. I do change that now though by upgrading to the Lemon. But really, if you look at this team, for turn 12 we have very, very poor stats. It's just the fringe head, and then everything else is based on the Aardvarks gaining in-battle stats. Another fairly weak opponent here though, so it's going to be pretty easy even though we only get 1 trigger. But I think, yeah, we can of course also use Rat. I forgot to mention that. Rat does work with Aardvark. And has always worked, so that was something you could do back in the olden days. Not sure how many Rat Aardvark teams I actually saw. I'm sure I've done a video on that in the past, but at this point there are so many builds that have been done on this channel and on other channels that it's difficult to remember them all. So another victory there. Now we've got the fringe head summoning a sheep onto the opposing side, so that gives us 2 triggers. Although we can get more than that if we manage to clear enough space for the sheep to spawn. And here we go. So the double ram spawn boosts the Aardvark stats way up. And it's very, very comfortable. double Aardvark Fringe Head winning on turn 14. But of course, I already mentioned that there are multiple units that function with the Aardvark now. I did forget about Rat earlier, but we still have the other new unit, or newish unit, to investigate, and that is going to be the Cuckoo. I think we're going to end up winning here. This looks like I'm poised to get the classic double level up from the fish. So we get the Cuckoo. I'm going to feed the Gelada first, and then I think we'll bring it in next turn. So Dolphin can serve a pretty similar purpose to the Crocodile in the previous turn. We could end up sniping stuff and therefore triggering the Aardvark's ability at start of battle. Oh, okay, I'm just going to take the level up there, although we did lose a bit of stats on the Gelada, I think it was. And then I take the Hedgehog here. Now the difference this time is having Cuckoo on the squad means that if we do snipe something, the Cuckoo is going to trigger immediately. Fringe Head obviously doesn't work that way, although we can clear space to make sure that we get the summon. We're able to now trigger these Aardvark abilities basically at start of battle. I can't remember if I end up taking 2 Aardvarks in this run or not. Maybe we're only going to need 1. Cuckoo can be very disruptive by itself, but here you see it working. We summon 2 units and then the Aardvark immediately goes up to a 12-13 even though it's only level 1. Maybe that's why Aardvark was nerfed way back. They knew in advance that they were going to have Cuckoo and Fringe Head in the game, so they didn't want to risk it getting out of hand. But again, this is a very weak looking team overall in terms of stats. But we can summon a bunch of Cuckoo Chicks here. Now Cuckoo Chick works similar to Fly in that you can't summon another Cuckoo Chick when one faints. So you can see there that the other Cuckoo waits until a different enemy unit gets sniped before the ability actually goes off. And then we get level 2 Jerboa here. Even though we have no apple generators on the squad, we're just going to risk it and hope that we get the apples in the shop that we need. Everything working like clockwork. In fact, I don't think the Aardvark is going to be required here at all. Or maybe it is. Yeah, just a little bit of cleanup at the end. And it's still only a level 1. Level 2 Jerboa. I think maybe I'll actually just end up combining the Cuckoos, yeah. And then we'll go for level 2 Aardvark instead. And actually we snipe a summoning pet here. Unfortunately the Cuckoo blocks it, so we don't get 2 triggers. But it doesn't really matter because you can see we're getting tons of Cuckoo Chick spawns. Okay, maybe it did matter in the end. We weren't going to win that battle no matter what happened. Another apple in the shop. And I think I'm going to look for something else here too. So I can try and play double White Tiger. It's been a while since I've seen this run, so I can't exactly remember what's going on. But here's someone playing the Pink Robin White Winter Spirit team that I made a video on way back. Now the Cuckoo Chick doesn't block the summons from the Chimera there because there was enough space. But we do actually scrape a tie, so that maybe seemed like a round that was almost unwinnable. But we end up drawing, even though we have a very poor-looking free-to-play only squad. Unfortunately here, this is going to be a loss because it's Manta Ray Bird of Paradise. Not much you can do about it. Automatic loss. Looks like some Competo action there as well. Yeah, we're going to go for the level 2 White Tiger. And I'm going to freeze the mushroom in case the Cuckoo gets sniped. And here's Troubadour. Not sure what he was going for here, but we block the Mammoth with the Cuckoo. That functionality is just so powerful. On top of the fact that we're getting tons of stats on the Aardvark. We're not going to quite be able to knock out the Ox through the Melon. But yeah, you can clearly see the level 3 Aardvark manages to max out on health. And it was almost at full attack as well. I just take the melon there because there was nothing else on offer. Maybe I should have just rolled. But this is actually Cuckoo versus Cuckoo, and they've got level 3s on everything. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the point of this is. They've got crisp being applied to a bunch of cuckoo chicks. Yeah, completely bizarre. And then we end up getting the cuckoo chick on both sides. The healing effect on the Aardvark is often really surprising. That it maybe looks like you're not going to win, but then the stat gain manages to clutch it out. We do finally get another apple. Maybe I am going to keep this Jerboa the whole way. I was sure I ended up selling it. And then here's an infected player going for some anglerfish shenanigans. But I think we're actually going to block the angler from coming in. So that was like a 40-40 angler that just got launched off screen there. I guess that's the strength of the Cuckoo at level 3, where it can actually interrupt these whale and pelican teams that would otherwise be extremely powerful. Okay, we are going to keep the Jerboa. Very surprising. And then an Anubis team with a bunch of high tier units, but we do block something from coming back there. I think that was maybe the tiger. The Jerboa gets sniped, but then we summon a bunch more cuckoo chicks. And then the Anubis is going to get to 50-50, even though the stats got wasted on the chicks there, but we still win. I mean, look at this team for turn 17. It looks absolutely terrible, but in reality, Aardvark is way better than you would give it credit for. And then here's another one. This was actually recorded way back when the update came out, and therefore you couldn't record replays on the PC anymore. You had to do it on your phone, which is why I've got the bizarre aspect ratio and there's no sound. But this was the run that was originally going to be the main run of the video. But because I couldn't record the replay on the PC, I ended up redoing it. But I thought this final battle was pretty interesting because the Fringe Head ends up messing up the Poisoned Dart Frog, so it gets pushed right to the back. And then the Aardvark gets up to 50-50, even though it's weakened here, and it's going to take extra damage from the PDF. We survive on 4 HP and get the win. So I end up combining the Fringe Heads there. Of course, you can just run multiple Fringe Heads and summon extra units that way. And then, much more typical looking squad, the Fringe Head is definitely going to get to summon. And they've got Tiger plus Eagle, so they're going to summon multiple units. In fact, they summon 3, and then it's Snake, although the Aardvark is actually maxed out on stats already. But the Garlic's going to block some damage, and then we one-shot through the Lemon. And there's another Aardvark Fringe Head win in Customs playing only free-to-play units.